Fit to Love Season 2, Episode 25, Natural Menopause versus Hysterectomy. Today's show brought to you by Hungry for Change, an inspiring film that has the power to transform your health.
Hey, this is John Lee Dumas from EO Fire. Get ready to get physically, emotionally, and spiritually fit with LA's best personal trainer and empowerment strategist, JJ Flazanes.
Fit to Love is physical, emotional, and spiritual fitness to achieve the happy life you deserve. From exercise to cooking, relationships, and spirituality, you'll find all the inspiration you need right here with our host, JJ Flazanes.
Hello and welcome to Fit to Love Wellness Wednesdays. Today's show, Natural Menopause versus Hysterectomy. Today we have back Elizabeth Plourde. Dr. Plourde is a menopause practitioner, medical researcher, health educator, and internationally known author whose books EMF Freedom, Solutions for the 21st Century Pollution, and Sunscreens Biohazard, Treat as Hazardous Waste, reveal how to reduce the health impact of wireless devices and alternatives to the sunscreens that can lead to the skin cancers they were intended to prevent. The cell phones and Wi-Fi we are now surrounded by create a variety of symptoms, including headaches, insomnia, itchy skin rashes, dizziness, nausea, and heart palpitations. Essential for everyone, Dr. Plourde offers simple, inexpensive techniques for cell phone and Wi-Fi radiation survival in today's electrified world, as well as safer sun exposure. Today's topic is going to be based on her expert as a menopause practitioner, and we're going to talk about hysterectomies versus natural menopause. Welcome back to the show, Dr. Plourde.
Thank you so much. I so appreciate having the opportunity to share my research. And what the topic is about today is based on my first book that I wrote that I spent 11 years researching, 11 years doing nothing but looking at women's ovarian hormones, those three hormones. They do so much in the body. It's incredible. Our premenopausal estradiol, which is our estrogen and progesterone, and then testosterone. Truly, they're amazing hormones that are essential in every body part. No matter where you look, we've got receptors for them in our brain, our eyes, our intestinal lining, our muscles, our bones. We really need them in order to function well.
So let's first talk about, because obviously the show I mentioned hysterectomy, because you had talked about surgical menopause as we were deciding what to call the show, and it didn't click for me, surgical menopause. Obviously, I haven't been there yet. But when we think about hysterectomy, or when I think about that, I know several women who have had them, and they've had them because of complications or pain or discomfort. Can we just go over some of the common diagnosis that women get that lead them to getting a hysterectomy?
The most common one is fibroid tumors, and fibroid tumors are benign. It would be 0.0001, the possibility of it being a tumor. And so they get them for those. And really, it's a crime to remove such a valuable organ. The medical doctors are really told that these organs are only for childbearing. They're useless. You don't need them anymore. They have counseled women for the whole last century that this is the case, that once you pass menopause, all they are is just, past childbearing, all they are is just places for cancers to grow. Really, 10% of the hysterectomies or the uterus removal is for cancer. Only 5% of the ovary removal is for cancer. The others, there's answers for any of the other conditions, and we should preserve these organs as much as possible because they do so much for the body. And my book, Hysterectomy, Ovary Removal, and Hormone Replacement, What All Women Need to Know, is essential because you really need to understand what these organs are doing for us. They do a lot. They are not just for childbearing. Very integral in the structure in the pelvic area. Women have a lot of bladder problems, the bladder's falling down, a lot of that type of, and vaginal prolapse when these organs are removed. The other thing is that they're never warned of is that what holds the uterus are the strongest ligaments in the body, and you cut those and you really allow the whole back to start in collapsing because you've lost a lot of your support. So these really should be preserved, and there's so many other methods for doing alternatives rather than removal. I do agree that, cancer is a reason for removing, but that's so few of there. The last time I looked, 625,000 hysterectomies in the United States, and 500,000 of those are including the ovary removal because women are told, oh, gee, you don't need them. When in reality, after menopause, those ovaries still keep producing valuable testosterone. They really do. I mean, men's testicles don't shut down creating testosterone, and neither do our ovaries. And so it's really a myth that the ovaries shut down at menopause. That testosterone is very valuable. It goes into the brain, gets converted into estradiol, which is our premenopausal estrogen, and it is very protective against Alzheimer's. One of the many reasons that more women have Alzheimer's because we have so much less estradiol. We have none after menopause, and then we only have it when the testosterone goes into the brain cells and gets converted into estradiol, whereas men have a lot more testosterone than we do, so they're constantly protecting their brain against Alzheimer's.
There's so much that we can talk about on this show, and I want to paint a picture for those who are listening that haven't had a hysterectomy or been having reasons. It's interesting that you say fibroid tumors because I have had two, and I know people that have had the surgical removal of fibroids. And for me, and we won't have time to do this on this show today. In fact, I'll just do a second show by myself to address this. But there are emotional reasons for all of this, and I've always believed that, and I know firsthand. In fact, one of my fibroids, I went in because I've done emotional work. I've done herbs, I've done acupuncture, dietary things, but I've done no surgeries, and I had some pain actually this year. I believe it was this year or at the end of last year happening, and it felt like a rock in my ovary, and I wasn't sure what was going on. And I went to the doctor, and she had said to the gynecologist, and she said, well, maybe it's rescinding. Maybe it's one of your fibroids and it's rescinding. And what I don't love about working with certain Western medical people is that she looked at me with this really sad kind of negative face of like that it's a problem. And I just wanted to clarify. And I said, so rescinding, which means, and she said, draining. I said, okay. And would there be a little bit calcifying, or would there something bad that could happen from that? And she said, no. And I said, so really, this is a good thing. I had to draw it out of her. And she said, well, yeah. I said, okay, yes, that's what we want. I'm trying to heal them. And so it's working. That's what I needed to know. But I had to literally work it out of her to get that. And I have known people who've had surgical removal of fibroids, and then 2 or 3 years later, they're all back. And I know that there are physical medical reasons and hormonal things that we can do to shift that, but there's also underlying emotional reasons why that's there. So I am in shock that people are taking out their uterus because of fibroids, number one. I understand that if you have many of them and they're really, really large, it's probably really painful. I don't have any pain except when it was rescinding. But are there any other diagnosis that gets women to have a hysterectomy besides fibroid tumors and pain?
Yes, the heavy bleeding that happens at perimenopause. We are such a stressed culture, society, that women's adrenals are really drained and stressed and adrenal fatigue. And when those get really low and we're not ovulating towards while we're in perimenopause, what happens every month is that when the egg follicle ruptures, what's left is called a corpus luteum, and that is progesterone. It dissolves. As it's dissolving, it's putting progesterone into the body. When we stop ovulating at menopause, during that perimenopausal period when we're 5 to 10 years of these missed periods, because the egg follicle doesn't rupture, we're very progesterone deficient. So during that time, the wall of the uterus starts building up due to the estrogen. And so we start doing heavy bleeding. And if we're in adrenal fatigue, it's even worse. This is what led me on my journey. I was bleeding so badly, I had to stay home with bath towels. And I went through this for 3 years. And I did not know 35 years ago that it was progesterone I was lacking. The doctor gave me estrogen, which is the exact opposite of what I needed. And it just got worse and worse. I sought second opinions. I sought a female gynecologist. Oh, yes, hysterectomy is your only answer. And so when that was the only answer, and I was spending several days a month just, staying home with the bath towels, I finally gave in and had the hysterectomy. The doctor took my ovaries without even discussing it with me. And I can't tell you how many women I have spoken in 35 states across the nation. And so many, every time I talk, 1 to 2 women come up to me and say the same thing happened to them. And when I woke up and he came in that night, I said, "Why'd you take my ovaries?" He goes, "You're over 40. You don't need them anymore. You don't want cancer in your future, do you?" So this is the belief that they go by. And because I was in such bad adrenal fatigue, I had been a single mother. I had been working 80 hours a week, flying all over, and a very, very demanding job in the medical field. And I just crashed and burned because I had no adrenals to take over the function of hormone, because they do. They produce precursors to our hormones. And so I had none. I just flatlined, and I was in such bad shape. And the doctors told me, "Well, you're just mourning the loss of your womb." And I knew I wasn't, because on my third child, I was in bed from the 4th month on with them telling me either I'll die or the baby die or both and never get pregnant again. So I was not mourning the loss of my womb. So in this crash and burn, and they just said, "You just need a psychiatrist." And I knew there was something chemically different in me. And I hear this all the time in my consults. They call and they go, "I know there's something different, and the doctor's telling me it's all in my head." Well, it's not. It's chemical. We're biochemically altered when these hormones are removed from us, and that alters our neurotransmitters and alters how we feel. That alters our serotonin. Estradiol is essential for us to be able to produce serotonin, and serotonin is what makes us feel good. So I went to the medical library. This is before computers. And I went to UCLA Biomedical Library. They have all the journals from around the world going back to the 1880s, 1890s, and they started removing women's ovaries in 1890. I can't even imagine, because they didn't really have much in the way of anesthetics at that time. But what I read was women experiencing the exact same symptoms that I did. No different, it's same symptoms. And yet the doctors discounted it. And there was a big argument going on in the British Medical Journal month after month, doctors writing to each other, telling them, "Oh, it's got to be your technique. That's why your patient is feeling that way." And then, "Oh, she had troubles before, so that's why it's just her psychological trouble." So all it was discounted, and it's been allowed to go on for over 100 years now. And it's the same damage to women's bodies. We were not meant to function without these organs. I've spoken extensively with Tibetan and Chinese doctors, and they say there's really nothing in that medicine to help with lost organs because they didn't remove them. They can help with a lot of hormonal imbalance, but it's very difficult once those organs are cut and gone.
It's a common thing I hear with clients, or it used to be anyway, and friends who get their gallbladder removed. Or I remember having a client once who had some pain in her leg, and it was in between, it was like on her shin, and having doctors tell her that they needed to remove part of her spine. And it always blows me away when I hear something like that, because I thought, no, we were perfect the way we were made. And the answer is not taking out something that's really important to our functioning. That's like taking the wheel off your car. It's not really going to work very well if you say, "Oh, well, something's wrong with it. Let's just get rid of it." How about fix it? How about heal it? Why is that not an option? So I am also very pleased that we are doing this show about hysterectomies, because just like C-sections and what else, gallbladder removal and a bunch of others, that things are just being taken out, and people are allowing that to happen because they don't know any differently. So if we can educate people so it doesn't happen to them, or if it does, what to do about it. So you've obviously gone through it. So what did you do to get your health back?
I spent 3 years what I call hormone hell, because I don't absorb oral estrogen or oral hormones. Luckily, I didn't, because it's very damaging. Hormones should never be taken orally. Very damaging to the liver. The liver views it as toxic. That's not how our hormones get into our body. They get in directly into the bloodstream straight from the ovaries. So the liver literally treats it like a toxin. And I have a chart in my book that shows all the damage to the liver. One of the things that alters is it alters our blood clotting factors. And I had called the National Institutes of Health when I found out they were going to use Premarin, which is horse urine, which they substitute for our estrogen, and Provera, which is a synthetic to our natural progesterone, which is anti-cancer. And when I found out they were going to use those in this big women's health initiative for 16,000 women over 10 years, I had already spent my 11 years and had already had the manuscript of my hysterectomy book. And so I knew they were going to get increased blood clots and increased heart disease because horse estrogens and synthetics to our progesterone given by mouth will cause that. There is nothing in that formulation that will help keep women's risk of heart disease down because it's our natural estrogen, our natural ovarian estrogen that keeps our heart disease down. And it's going through the liver, which will kick up the blood clotting probability. So I called them because I thought that they would really care, that they were going to create a problem. And I didn't get anywhere because they went ahead with it. They stopped it at 2 years with increased blood clots and increase in heart disease. It's staggering because it's just simple biochemistry that's causing that. And I finally found, I tried the creams, I tried patches, I tried shots, and nothing really worked for me. And after 3 years of just feeling miserable, dragging my body around, I felt asexual without testosterone from the ovaries. I really felt neutered, that I wasn't female or male, no ability to respond sexually whatsoever, and depressed, crying all the time, and no energy. So I went from only working not 2 days a month, but to almost not working because I was just in such bad shape. Finally, the doctor that I was working with got involved in a clinical trial of hormone pellet implants. I said, okay, I'll try it. I'm willing to try anything. And I didn't feel good. I had been getting a shot of testosterone and estradiol. That made me feel good for a day. But I was getting them up in Beverly Hills. I'm in Orange County in Southern California. It would be 3-hour drive up and 3-hour drive back. I'd spend a whole day getting a shot a week just to feel good for a day. So that didn't work out either. So when I got the pellet implants, I thought I'd feel good, and I didn't. And the days dragged on. Finally, at 2 weeks, I woke up and I thought, wow, there is a sun outside. I do feel good. I do feel like myself. And I've been on them for 30 years now and love them. They last about 4.5, 5 months. And one of my first symptoms when they start wearing down is bladder incontinence, because the urethra of the bladder absolutely has to have estrogen. And when I go down the Depends aisles in the grocery store, I just cringe and I get so upset that women deserve to know that estrogen is the answer here. Estrogen and then testosterone, because we need the strength and the muscle. We absolutely have to have testosterone in order to have muscle strength. And that's for our entire body. Our spine, we start deteriorating completely without these hormones in our body. And we're being told, oh, they're dangerous, don't take them, they cause breast cancer. Well, the end result is osteoporosis, unmendable broken hip, being a nursing home for 1 to 2 years. I interviewed these women. I mean, it's a disastrous way to live. And the combination of the Premarin Provera, the things that aren't natural, are really part of the breast cancer problem, not our natural bioidentical hormones that we evolved with, that our body's dependent upon, that keeps us healthy. When we have these hormones in our body, we are much healthier because they're designed to be there. So it's just tragic to me that so many women are suffering needlessly because it's Alzheimer's, it's osteoporosis, it's muscle weakness, the body just falling down, it's arthritis. Before I found these hormones, I got osteoarthritis in my hands so bad. They looked that horrible misshapen, large joints in the fingers all angled over. My joints were so painful, I couldn't even open jars. I couldn't even hold hands with my husband. And I finally got the hormones that my body absorbs through the pellets. And at 4 months, the pain had gone away. I could hold hands with my husband again. And I don't know exactly where in the 2 years, but at 2 years, I'm looking at my hands one day and I'm going, oh my gosh, my joints are all natural size, all down. And so all of our joints, our ligaments, they all need these hormones. So it's very important for women to consider taking these hormones, whether you're natural or surgical menopause. The only time I've seen a woman who has enough hormones is when she has not had to work outside the home, when she's had a husband and a happy marriage that she's very protected and her adrenals are healthy and they take over beautifully at menopause because they make those precursors of the hormones. And so she's got a full hormone complement. But out of all the women over the 20 years I've been doing my consulting worldwide, I've only seen one woman that had that type of full hormone support. So every single woman really needs to look at hormone replacement, but bioidentical, exactly like what your ovary makes, the exact estradiol. Part of the other problem is that estrogen's all lumped under just estrogen. We have 3 human estrogens. We have estradiol, which is our workhorse. That's what saves all of our organs. We need it for our eyes, our brain, everywhere. We need it in the intestinal lining. If we don't have estradiol in our intestinal lining, we don't absorb the calcium from the food we eat. So we can take all this calcium, but we're not taking, the body's not absorbing it. The thing that really blew me away about these hormones is estrogen, as estradiol, progesterone, and testosterone are all 3 involved in how we metabolize glucose. So they're involved just in our basic metabolism of our food.
And we did a show about the truth about bioidentical hormones, which I think I told you that we did. And I'm so happy to have you on as a female physician also speaking about this. So we do need to take a break to thank our sponsors. But when we come back, I want to go over all of the things that women can do in terms of, I know you said not to take it hormones orally, but I want to talk about other ways that women will do it. And if there is more than one way, or if you just think there's one way. So we'll be right back with that information right after this break.
We all want more energy, an ideal body, and beautiful, younger-looking skin. So what is stopping us from getting this? From the creators of the best-selling documentary Food Matters comes another hard-hitting film certain to rock your world. Hungry for Change exposes shocking secrets the diet, weight loss, and food industry don't want you to know about. Deceptive strategies designed to keep you coming back for more. Find out what's been keeping you from having the body and health you deserve and how to escape the diet trap forever. Featuring interviews with best-selling health authors and leading medical experts, plus real-life transformational stories with people who know what it's like to have been sick and overweight. Learn from those who have been there before and continue your health journey today. Featuring Dr. Christian Northrup, David Wolf, Dr. Joseph Mercola, Jamie Oliver, and more. Visit fittolove.tv/resources to get your copy today. Again, that's fittolove.tv/resources. Having a hard time losing weight even when you eat well and exercise? You may have weight loss resistance. The Metabolic Makeover audio program will uncover the 7 factors of weight loss resistance and guide you towards identifying what to do about it. Discover what common foods and toxins hinder fat from being released from the body and how you can naturally increase your metabolism. Let Dr. Alan Peters, Jeannie Peters, and I walk you through the steps of weight loss resistance so you can overcome it once and for all. Visit the products page on fittolove.tv to download it now.
Okay, Dr. Plourde, so you said no oral hormones. What about, and I know you said it didn't work for you to do other things, but what about creams?
Creams, some women absorb them, 20% don't. And that was the other part of my journey. I didn't absorb the creams either, but when women do, they work great. Absolutely. And it is one of the easiest ways to replace your hormones. And the creams going into the skin, into the blood, that is a very excellent way to replace it. And if women are having a lot of trouble with bladder incontinence or vaginal atrophy, it's very good to put in the vaginal area. And that's the only time that you could use the estriol. The estriol is very good in those tissues. We're so well made. The estradiol is our workhorse before menopause. The estrone is what our fat cells make, and that's what we have after menopause. we have millions of women showing us that those don't help with osteoporosis and Alzheimer's because we have estrogen in our body, but our bodies deteriorate down to that point. Estriol is really the waste product of the body's use of estrone and estradiol. And as such, there's a lot of it going out in the urine, and it bathes those tissues and keeps them healthy. So even on the way out as a waste product, we're designed so that it's still beneficial for those tissues.
Okay. So no oral creams, okay. 20% of women do not absorb them. And what are the other forms that are acceptable or other forms to stay away from?
The lozenges or troches, those are very good if you hold them in your mouth, or they're called buccal, in the cheek cavity. So as long as you hold it in your mouth and let it dissolve and don't swallow it, because you don't want it in your stomach, but if it'll go into the tissues that way. So that's an excellent way too. The only time I really recommend the pellet implants that I have is when women are not absorbing them and have their ovaries removed, and we're the ones who need a lot more hormone support.
Would you say that the implants then would be best for anyone who's had a hysterectomy?
Not necessarily. If they'll absorb the creams, then they'd be fine. So it's just I don't absorb the creams, and I've talked with doctors. I tan in 5 minutes. So I've talked to doctors, and they said that they've noticed that people who tan quickly don't seem to absorb the creams, that there's something different in our skin.
Okay. Now I just want to make sure we're clear for everyone who's listening. We're talking about bioidentical hormones, nothing synthetic, correct?
Correct. Right. And what they do is they take soy or Mexican wild yam. Mexican wild yam is a progestogen, which is a very similar structure to our estradiol, progesterone, testosterone. And in the lab, they take it to make it our exact estradiol, progesterone, testosterone, or the soy the same. The phytoestrogens in there are very similar. We can eat soy all day, and we're not going to get to the estradiol, progesterone, testosterone. We don't have the enzymes to make that into the molecule we need. So eating it doesn't do any good. And in fact, eating soy is very bad for us. It does sit in our thyroid receptors, so it blocks our thyroid from working. So we do not want to eat the soy.
We are a soy-free show.
Great.
We're soy-free, dairy-free, gluten-free, grain-free currently. However, in the future, I'm sure I'll do some fun stuff that's still gluten-free. But yes, we are a soy-free show. So definitely good. Thank you for letting us know about that, because I know a lot of women might just assume, well, I can just eat it. Isn't soy supposed to help with my estrogen? Well, it doesn't naturally get metabolized as actually good estrogen. It could be metabolized into the estrogen that causes cancer, just like the plastic in our water bottles.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we have I've never seen the lozenges, so that's really interesting to me. Does that come in all hormones? So estrogen, progesterone, testosterone?
These are made by compounding pharmacists, and they get the prescription from the doctor. These are regulated by the FDA, so there's prescription for them only. And then the compounding pharmacist makes them up in whatever dosage the doctor recommends. So, and all of them can be put into the lozenges. All of them can be put into one cream, the estradiol, the progesterone, and testosterone. So you only have one to deal with, and it's less expensive. I like sometimes to bring people up by dosing each hormone individually to make sure that each one is correct. But so many people are strapped financially today that we've been able to put them all in one and then just bring them up. So women who respond to the creams respond within days, a week, 2 weeks. They feel entirely different.
So you're coming back for a fourth show, and it's going to be on blood work and lab results. So my question to you before I spill the beans on that show is, how do we get tested? What's the best method?
Being a clinical laboratory scientist and having done the hormone assays in the lab, I truly believe that the hormone assays they're one of the most inaccurate tests in the lab. So what you see and normal values are also very not in a range that you can be way outside the normal range for you, and that's normal for you. So laboratory testing is really not valuable. What I do when I do my intake is I have a series of questions. I have about a 6-page intake questionnaire where I go by symptoms. There's definite symptoms for estrogen, definite for progesterone, testosterone, the adrenals, the thyroid. Based on symptoms, you can tell so much more about what's going on with a woman or a man rather than the laboratory values.
Okay, so let's lead into then how can someone contact you and work with you and have them do that so that you could prescribe for them what they need and they can feel better.
Okay, my email is Elizabeth with a Z, Elizabeth@newvoice.net. It's new as old and new, and then voices and speaking, newvoice.net. Our publishing company that we created to get this information out there, we felt like we were a new voice in the health field. My phone number is 949-551-3397. Again, it's 949-551-3397. And I work worldwide, so I do it all by email and Skype and phone. Do an hour consult once you fill out the evaluation and I have a look at it. And then I can tell you, I can really get such an accurate picture of what's going on inside of you and help give you the guidance as to the direction where to go and what to do to get your hormones back in balance. And it's critically important. It really is. Estrogen does 5 things for the eye. 5 things. It just, when I was not absorbing hormones, I used to swim every single day. I don't anymore because sunscreens are in the water and it's so toxic. But my eyes would just burn. And I went to an optometrist and she goes, "You just got holes in your membrane," because we need estradiol in order to make a complete intact membrane for the eye. So it's truly amazing what these hormones do for us without us even understanding or recognizing it.
Well, thank you for all this information today. We could continue, but we have to wrap up the show. And I know there's going to be questions from our listeners, and I am sure you're going to get a call from nobody else but me. So for both myself and loved ones in my life that I would like to help with the hormonal conversation. And I also have been working in a medical facility with anti-aging physicians that prescribe bioidentical hormones. So I've been on this train for at least 7, 8, 9 years. So I'm a big believer and supporter in all of that. So thank you again for such a great in-depth show on all of this really, really important information. Thank you so much for being here again, Dr. Plourde.
Thank you so much. And I do have a website. It's newvoice.net.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
The Fit to Love podcast show offers you 6 days a week of helpful content to achieve the happy life you deserve. Movement Mondays and Tasty Tuesdays are weekly videocasts, while Wellness Wednesdays, Thoughtful Thursdays, Freedom Fridays, and Sexy Saturdays are audio-only shows themed every week to address your holistic life and needs. If the show inspired you, we would love for you to share it and subscribe. Thank you so much for joining us today. Head on over to fittolove.tv for recaps of every show, resources, and to join the community. That's FIT, the number 2, LOVE.TV. Have a fit and fabulous day.